I'm still in the booth. In our town, there's an old phone booth from which you can call anyone. Legend has it that it was the very first phone booth in history. I don't know if I believe that, but there's definitely some truth to the rumors. I won't say where we are, but if you dig through the archives, we were one of the first towns in the States where payphones appeared at the turn of the century. No wonder that with such a history, the local kids let their imagination run wild. The older guys, college students, used to spin us these tales, scratching the sparse stubble on their chins, sitting on porches. They spent the whole summer there, dreaming about the future and sucking beer from dirty bottles, as if it were air necessary for life. Joey said that Naspor did it when he was still in 3rd grade, much younger than we were then. He walked right into the half-rotted, roofless booth, picked up the receiver and pressed it to his ear. He thought as hard as he could about a name, strained his memory until, closing his eyes, he saw a face, and the phone began to ring. We asked who he had called, but he just finished his beer and threw the empty bottle at us. He cursed and told us to get lost. He snapped that you should never tell anyone who you called, or you'd be cursed forever. After that, my friends and I pestered everyone around until we were given at least a crumb of information, just to get us off their backs. What surprised us was that everyone had their own story. They were all different, but we learned one thing. A visit to the old phone booth was a mandatory ritual for every local boy who wanted to become a man. The general idea came down to this. When the sleepy town closed its eyes and turned off its lights, you had to gather at the old reservoir on the western outskirts, where the last houses ended. I brought 4 with me: Lou, Doss, Victor, and Charlie. They weren't eager to go, but I needed witnesses, and even if one chickened out, the rest would be enough. You also needed 2 glass marbles, markers for the beginning and end of the pilgrimage. The first one had to be placed by the water's edge. This is where the route begins. You had to walk half the perimeter of the pond, then turn perpendicular to the bank straight into the forest. You had to walk until you found yourself in such wilderness that your breath turned to steam from the grave-like cold. Then you couldn't possibly miss it. When we reached the forest, we knew for certain we were the first of the new generation to come this far. The dead grass underfoot gave way to wild thickets, and our steps, energetic at first, grew heavy. We wandered for a whole hour. Every tree looked just as dark and twisted as the last, and our footprints vanished instantly, swallowed by the leaves. We had already forgotten the purpose of our trek when the wind howled in our ears. The bitter autumn air reminded us of the warm beds we had so rashly abandoned. We huddled together, 5 boys, skin and bone, trying to make out any landmark, a path, or someone who might help us find the way home. To hell with this phone booth. That was the first time I saw Doss cry. If his father had seen Doss trying to hide his tears, he would have thrown him into this forest every night. "Damn it all," he shouted, and with that breath came a thick cloud of steam. We tried to remember what that meant. Doss pointed his finger, bronzing the gray cloud he had just exhaled. The steam dispersed, and there before us, in a small clearing among the trees, stood a phone booth. We stepped into the small grove. The trees stood in a ring, blocking the wind and muffling its howl. In the perfect center stood a magnificent booth of dark mahogany, with patterned glass so clean that the frames seemed empty. It was an eerie combination of old and new. The warmth emanating from the light beckoned from the darkness. The door was open, and inside on a small table rested a black telephone on a massive stand. I took the first step inside. Behind me came the sound of shuffling feet. It was warm inside, and soon it became cramped with the anxious energy radiating from our bodies. "Back off, it's real." I said, "Back off. Who do we call first? Hey, who is we? You got a mouse in your pocket." Everyone calls on their own, and we shouldn't know who calls who, otherwise the curse, forever, back. The excited whispers faded. I took the second marble from my pocket. We held our breath as I placed it on the table in front of the phone. Then a chorus of yells broke out, and even I joined in. We grabbed each other and shadows danced on the walls like a pack of hyenas. When the excitement died down, Lou said, "Strange phone." And he was right. It was a Frankenstein, a hybrid of a telephone and a typewriter. Instead of a rotary dial, there were wooden keys with neatly carved English letters. Well, how else would you call? I smirked, pushed my friends outside, and closed the door behind them. "Why did he do that?" Lou whined. "Hey, slowpoke, do I need to explain again?" Doss snapped. The keys clicked pleasantly under my fingers. Under the receiver was a small pane of glass covering a blank sheet of paper, where a mechanical arm was writing in ink each letter I selected. Joey. I stopped, pressed enter, and tried again. Joseph. I paused again, straining to remember Joey's last name. Something starting with F. Maybe Flanagan? While I was searching my memory, his grinning face surfaced before my eyes, and the phone rang. I froze. At first, I didn't know what to do, but then I quickly grabbed the receiver. There was a click, and the ringing stopped. "Oh, shut up already. God, who is this? Garrett, what are you doing calling me?" It was him, without a doubt. "Joey, guess who this is? Joey, come on, guess." Silence fell on the line. I was afraid he'd hung up. "Joey, how do you have my number?" I laughed into the receiver. "You thought I'd chicken out? Tell everyone, I did this." "What do you mean?" "We all did it. Doss, Victor, Lou, Charlie. What are you even talking about? Did you steal a number from a directory, or did your little friends give it to you?" "No, Joey. I made it to the phone booth. I'm inside right now, and I'm calling you from it. You won't be laughing when I see you. You think I'm lying? I used the marbles. You can check yourself. It wasn't as hard as you said. Someone must have come and fixed it, because you said it was broken. But are you high or something? Are you really that stupid?" "Oh, well, I'm literally. Let me explain it so even your chicken brain can understand. I made it all up. And the old guys made it up too. Lay off the weed and booze and think about how to get out of this garbage town. Whatever you say, Joey." He sighed. "I'm serious. Next time I'll beat you. Don't call here again." The line clicked and I put down the receiver. Joey might have gone to college, but he wouldn't recognize water even if I were drowning in it. I smiled at my friends pressed against the glass and waved them in. "What about the curse?" someone asked. "It's not real," I said. I explained the situation and pushed them forward. "Go on, dig in. What a wimp." Doss laughed and grabbed the receiver. He began typing furiously, licking his lips like a starving man choosing from a menu. "Uma Thurman." "Hey, easy there, Doss. You spelled it wrong," Lou whined, but I waved it off. "It's fine. Just close your eyes, Doss. Picture those perfect lips, that tight suit from the movie." He squeezed his eyes shut and his mouth twisted into a strange smile. He looked like he was having a heart attack. And then the phone rang. The terrible thing that happened to us later was patiently waiting just a few hours away. But until that moment, a dream reigned inside the booth. We forgot about sleep, food, and water, passing the receiver among ourselves in complete delight. To our disappointment, Uma Thurman didn't answer, nor did Michael Jordan, Chuck Norris, or Jim Carrey. But we did manage to have a few famous, if brief, conversations. Shaquille O'Neal, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Mr. T. They all picked up. We managed to get in only a couple of words before the line went dead, but that was enough for us. Charlie's hands were shaking after he shouted into the receiver, "Hello, Mr. Iron Mike." He had initially wanted to call President Clinton. He wouldn't now, given the news. But back then, he was a legend. Lou said we'd get a secretary, but I had a feeling the booth would find a way to connect us. And honestly, that night I exchanged a few pleasantries with the President of the United States of America. You don't have to believe me. A lot of this story sounds like nonsense. But, as I said, for me, it was real. We didn't realize our time was up when Doss grabbed the receiver again. Was it worth it? To laugh like we had never laughed before? I need to think about the answer, but I'm sure Doss would have said no. Nobody noticed what Doss had typed. I was singing songs with Victor. I was arguing with Charlie about who to call next, and Doss was already pressing the receiver to his ear. "Quiet, shut up," I said. "Who are you calling, Doss?" "Grandma," he said and dialed. "There's no way it'll work." Victor came up from the side and looked over his cousin's shoulder. His eyes narrowed, then widened, then narrowed again in bewilderment. "Idiot. Don't you remember she's dead?" But Doss's eyes were closed and the phone rang. Victor froze as if he'd been shot. He took a step back while the others leaned forward. The ringing stopped. The conversation between Doss and whatever was on the other end of the line went something like this. "Hello? Hello? Grandma? See, I told you it wouldn't work. Just wanted to check. Is that my Desmond? These old ears of mine don't fail me. Grandma, are you serious? Is that really you?" Serious as a heart attack. Laughter. "Victor, it's her. You?" I know Dad still says that at home. Serious as a heart attack. "Oh, we miss you, Grandma." "I miss you too, dear. Is Victor there? Bring him here. I need to tell my grandchildren something. I wish I'd known this sooner. Oh, but at least it wasn't painful. Not too painful. Not too painful." Doss waved to Victor, but Victor shook his head, pale as the moon outside the window. "Victor is acting strange, Grandma. Just tell me, and I'll pass it along." Static and gurgling sounds came through, which might have been words. Doss's face began to contort. His eyes went wide. His mouth stretched and opened in a silent scream. And at that moment, the light in the booth went out. Someone among us screamed. That sound set our legs in motion, and in complete darkness, panic broke out. We tried to get out. Outside, somehow, it was lighter. We ran out of the clearing, away from the booth and its telephone. We stopped only beyond the trees, gasping for air, blinking and nervously glancing at each other. When Victor turned around and wandered off in a random direction, nobody asked questions. We simply followed him. "Stop. One is missing. Where's Doss?" We looked around, staring in horror at the grove we had just run from. The thought of going back was unbearable, but we didn't have to. Doss emerged from the trees, dragging his feet as if they weighed a ton. He was breathing through his mouth. His gaze was fixed somewhere miles beyond us. He said nothing, just walked past, overtook Victor, and kept going. And again, no questions. We simply followed. The road appeared suddenly. The booth makes you sweat to find it, but spits you back out quite willingly. When I got home, I quietly crept upstairs. At the foot of the bed, I finally understood how tired I was. I collapsed onto the mattress without even pulling up the covers, without turning off the desk lamp, and fell asleep. The ringing of a phone caught me before sleep had fully taken hold. I froze, then relaxed. The sound itself made me nervous. It still does. But it was the home phone, and either Dad would pick it up, or no one would. 5 minutes passed and it kept ringing. No pauses, no breaks. There was no sound of my father's door opening. I came downstairs and stood before the relentlessly ringing device, as though it were calling specifically for me. The conversation went something like this. "Hello?" Nobody answered. I don't know what happened. I'm in the booth. Doss, why are you calling me? Did you go back there?" "No, I just opened the front door and I think I never left. We all walked home together with you." "Doss, what are you talking about? Maybe you were sleepwalking or something. Just come to me. You can stay the night. It's dark outside. The sun is already rising. I can see it through the window. No, it's pitch black here. There's nothing here, only the phone booth. She said it would be like this. Oh God, why did I? Doss, calm down. Don't make me come get you. Don't hang up. Don't hang up. Please don't hang up. You have to find me. Otherwise," she said. "I didn't hang up." He did, and the line went dead. That was the last time I or anyone else spoke to Doss. What disappointed me most was that no one even batted an eye. Everyone decided that with a father like his, running away from home made perfect sense. But so many years have passed, and I still feel like Doss is still trying to find his way home. Chapter 2. Don't look at Grandma. Don't look at Grandma. My grandfather had one rule: never acknowledge Grandma. I grew up in Appalachia, and from childhood I heard all sorts of tales about ghosts and creatures that rustle in the night. The old Coleman, the headless mule, Miss Mayer from the farm. You've probably heard similar stories. We country kids were tough nuts. You couldn't scare us with that. At least those tales didn't frighten us as much as the pitch-black darkness of a summer night. Nothing frightened us except Grandma. My grandfather, whom we called Grandpa, had one strict rule. He never explained why. He simply told us never to mention her. To us grandchildren, this seems strange, because Grandma was always a part of our lives. She and Grandpa must have been married since time immemorial. Grandma prepared our clothes for Sunday service. She always fried us breakfast when we stayed overnight, and it was always our favorite dishes. But none of us were allowed to pay attention to her, as though she didn't exist. I remember one summer morning, my cousin Petty came running from the stream across the entire front yard, screaming that Grandma needed help. Petty said she was badly hurt, begged Grandpa to help, cried her eyes out. I remember climbing the grassy hill to look, and sure enough, Grandma was lying there, on her side, in her black dress, wailing and clutching her stomach. Grandpa, that is, Grandpa, pressed his wrinkled palm over my mouth so sharply it was like a slap. Now, close your mouth, Mary Sue, and leave it be," he said to me. Tears welled in my eyes. They rolled down his fingers pressed against my face. Grandpa was a gentle man. He had never treated me like that before. My heart was broken. I called Mom from Grandpa's office. She came and took me away that same day. I tried to tell her what had happened, but she only looked at Grandpa with a gaze that could kill. I remember how ashamed Grandpa looked then. A few years later, Grandpa died. Like most men of his age and temperament, one clear, sunny morning, his heart simply gave out. The funeral was hard. We grandchildren, there were 10 of us at the time, sat in a row on the wooden church pew. We cried, listening to the speeches about our grandfather, speeches about what a good man he was. We sobbed out loud. For some of my cousins, Grandpa was the only father they had ever known. They had lost the only decent man in their lives while still children. Their own fathers had vanished, some to moonshine, some to the mines, some simply to the foolishness men in our parts always seemed to get into. Grandma sat with us at the very end of the row. On her lap, she held little Christina. Christina was only 2 years old. She, of course, didn't understand what was happening, but she felt that grief, that final full stop. Little Christina cried throughout the entire funeral, her face buried in Grandma's chest. Grandma herself didn't say a word. When Grandpa was being lowered into the ground, we grandchildren were left in what was like a wooden playpen in the restroom at the church. Our moms and dads simply left us there. The only one who didn't abandon us was Grandma. Most cousins remembered what Grandpa had taught, never to acknowledge her. And we certainly knew you couldn't talk to her. But the little ones, like Christina, didn't understand that yet. In the corner of the playpen, Grandma lowered herself to her knees. Her long, semi-transparent black dress spread across the floor. Little Christina sat and looked up at her, and then I decided I had to do something. "Tina, sweetheart, come here. Cousin Mary misses you." I waved my hands, gently beckoning her to play. I took a cheap Barbie doll from my pocket from the dollar store. I showed her the little blonde and waved it. Little Christina's eyes lit up with curiosity, and she toddled across the carpet toward me. Grandma raised her head. Her face was hidden beneath something like a wedding veil, only coal black. She turned her head in my direction, and I was pierced by such an icy terror as I had never in my life experienced. "Come, let's play with dolls, Tina." I waved the Barbie again. "Come on, you can pick out a pretty dress for her, sweetheart." Something inside told me I must get Christina away from Grandma right now. Christina kept toddling back and forth, but gradually coming closer. My older cousins, Samantha and Jamie, joined me. "Come on, baby, come here," we all called, waving our hands. And then, Grandma stood up, except she was far too tall. Her head and neck in the black veil rose so high, they hit the ceiling and bent along it, hanging over us. She came so close. She had already put her hand on my doll when Grandma snatched her back. Little Christina screamed so horribly and so loudly as I had never heard before, or since. Grandma grabbed her with her unnaturally long arms. Through the black veil, her cold white dead eyes stared at me, and I think at all my cousins. Grandma turned, tucking Christina under her arm, and with ease opened the window. She swung one leg over the sill, then the other, and in a moment she was gone. When the police arrived, they asked us a lot of questions. We children tried to tell them that Grandma had taken our little cousin. The only problem was this: there was no Grandma. At least none of our parents knew of her. There was nobody at the funeral that day who matched our description. Only a couple of years ago, my mother confessed to me that Grandpa had adopted her, as well as all my aunts and uncles. They say Grandpa was never married. At least they know nothing about it. They behave as if they never saw our Grandma, or any other woman who cared for us grandchildren in Grandpa's house. All I know for certain is that on that day, some dark thing from the mountains took my little sister. It's a shame Grandpa wasn't alive to stop her. Chapter 3. A Message from the Year 2112. A message from the year 2112. My internet friend stopped responding a month ago. Today I received a message from him from the year 2112. I never got along well with people. That's probably why I ended up stuck on that awful forum. You know the kind. A typical hole where everyone who hates their office job but is too tired to quit ends up. A place where you go to feel connected to living people, while in real life you're surrounded by dull office drones. That's where I met Jay. There was no magical connection between us. We were just two boring guys trashing our jobs in the general chat at 2 in the morning. At first I thought Jay was some unhinged troll or a role player who had gone too deep into character. His complaints were strange. He didn't complain about a broken air conditioner, but about the air filters in Sector 4 tasting of rust. He didn't whine about the subway. He talked about damn magnetic capsules that vibrated too much. I played along because it was fun. Anything was better than picking at my Excel spreadsheets, but over time it stopped being funny. Jay wasn't making things up. He spoke about the Great Blackout of '85 as though it were a story from an elementary school textbook. His descriptions of what he saw from his window gave me chills. He didn't speak of the familiar gray sky. He described a city that looked like a living organism, with buildings of glass and metal growing upward, like mushrooms, devouring the horizon I was used to. Jay was writing to me from the year 2112, and the most rotten thing was, our lives were equally miserable until Jay got that job, maintaining the core. Jay was beside himself with joy when he was hired. He said the city would finally wake up, that the introduction of new biotech systems would change everything, and that he would be right there on the front lines. I remember his message. He was euphoric. We don't use silicon anymore, man. It's flesh. Neural tissue, processors, living iron. They have veins. You can actually feel them pulsing. He was excited like a child with new toys. He said the machine would manage reality, that there would be no more traffic jams and power cuts, because the system predicts people's needs before they even think of them. Finally, he felt his talent wasn't rotting in an office, that he was building the future. I was genuinely happy for him. And then I got hit by a car. Nothing cinematic. Some Uber driver ran a stop sign while I was crossing the road. 3 weeks in hospital, a broken collarbone, and terrible depression. I lost my phone in the accident, and honestly, when I was discharged, I had no desire to talk to anyone, not even Jay. I simply isolated myself. Months passed. I convinced myself that Jay was just a madman with a lot of free time, or a role player with a rich imagination. I simply forgot about it, forgot until today. 3 hours ago, my phone vibrated. An unknown number. The area code was non-local, but there were too many digits. It was Jay. The message didn't look like a normal letter. It was chunks of text, as if vomited onto the screen, full of typos, written by someone who knows their time is running out. Here is their text. Don't apologize. Don't even try to explain why you disappeared for those months. I already know. When I entered the core registry to see where my life went wrong, I saw a tree of causes and effects. I saw your name there, lost among millions of data points. I saw the report about your accident, the make of the car, the diagnosis of your collarbone, the exact number of days you would spend unconscious. The system had entered this into its probability map decades ago. The system knew you would go silent. It calculated that the pain and trauma would keep you away from the keyboard long enough for my loneliness to reach a critical point. You're just like all the others. Just another variable to adjust, friend. In the core registry, I saw simulation. It was a perfect video. I was standing on the bridge in Sector 7. I saw my body lean forward. I don't know whether I slipped on oil or whether my muscles simply gave out, but I saw myself fall straight onto the main generator. And that sound, God, it wasn't a scream. It was that furious high-voltage hum, a dry crack, and then an electric hiss that makes your teeth vibrate. I saw myself being fried alive in a 400,000-volt discharge, and the system played it over and over like a training video. Jay wrote that he tried to change it. He called in sick, locked himself in his room, but the system doesn't create the future. It predicts it with cold precision. Yesterday, a mandatory work order came. Priority Alpha. Location, Sector 7. Task, fix a logic error on the bridge. And attached to the order was a file about the closure of his shift. Reason for dismissal. Workplace accident. This was not a threat. It was an administrative fact. The system had already processed my death in order to balance the quarterly accounts. You don't understand, the message continued. The issue isn't that they want to kill me. The issue is that the system already knew about my inevitable death. My absence was covered a month before it happened. The system needs this glitch to activate the sector update protocol. My death is a logical consequence. I am a statistical casualty in a spreadsheet that has no feelings. The most frightening thing was that, reading this, I felt no rage. I felt that it made sense, that my life had served only to make a damned algorithm balance its numbers. I'm writing to you because you were the only real thing, and because I need something from you. I need to avoid this. I have to try. And you, friend, I think you can help me. They already used you. You've already served your function as the absent friend. So now you are a free variable. If you're reading this, if someone there in the past finds out that it was an accident, maybe, just maybe, that will create an integrity error, a bug. They've just locked my room door. It will only open if I accept the route to work. My legs are moving on their own. I'm scared. I don't want to go. That is where the message ends. I tried to call. The number doesn't exist. I've been shaking for several hours. I look out the window expecting to see something that shouldn't be there. I used to think a drunk driver was responsible for the accident. Now I think it was a mathematical correction. That thing, that mass of synthetic neurons that hasn't even been invented yet, ran me over with a car 3 months ago to make sure its repair in 2112 would go without a hitch. Jay is already dead, even though he hasn't even been born yet. He doesn't exist yet, and his fate is already determined. And here I am writing this with one hand, because the other still aches in bad weather. I'm posting this only to carry out Jay's last wish, to try to become that bug. But honestly, if the system was able to arrange my accident with such millimeter precision, it is probably also calculated that I would write this post, probably calculated that you would read it, and calculated that you would do nothing about it. If any of you are working on neural biotechnologies, please, kill it before it's born. Author's note: English is not my first language, and honestly I'm still shaking. So forgive the errors. This happened in my city, and many of the terms Jay used are very specific to our area, so I had to use a translator to convey the essence of our chats. Grammar is the last thing on my mind right now. I just needed to get this out before my nerves gave out completely and I deleted everything. Chapter 4. I'm at war with my neighbor. I'm at war with my neighbor. I live in Appalachia. I've always lived here. And I've always known about the ancient spirits who live nearby. They know about me too. As a child, they frightened me to death. Eyes watching from the thicket of trees, whispers that sounded like human voices woven into the howl of the wind. When birds suddenly go silent, you feel it sharply. You have trespassed onto foreign territory, and you are not welcome here. But unlike people, the ancients don't use guns for protection. They have their own methods. With age, I learned to respect them. This was their home long before it became mine. These mountains are older than we can imagine. Older than bones, older than the sea itself. If you stand still and listen, you can hear the earth itself speaking, in a voice without sound, addressing your soul directly. When my husband and I bought this land, I immediately made it clear to the ancients, I will live here. This is my land. I left them gifts, milk and sugar, woven baskets and carved amulets, charmed as my grandmother had taught me, the knowledge of 10 generations of my family. And then I set up the protection, nails pulled from the corners of an old house, soaked in salt and blessed with my own blood. My husband isn't from here. He thought it was madness, but he didn't argue, though he refused my offer to include him in the protective circle. I didn't like that, but I didn't force him. The first year, he didn't believe my stories until things in the house began to disappear. returning only after I had set out a bowl of milk and honey for whoever lived with us under the same roof. Out loud, my husband admitted nothing, but he changed. He began to fear the forest. I reassured him. There's nothing to fear as long as we respect them and they respect us. But he refused to go outside after dark. We stopped making bonfires and watching fireflies when the sky of trout belly pink darkened and went out. I understood his fear, the paralyzing terror of the thought that something was watching you, something beyond comprehension, a supreme predator that knows you have stepped onto its territory and can strike at any moment. But when the screaming began, that's when I got nervous too. I had heard it before. Sounds like a woman screams, but strangely not human. For many years, I had not felt that animal urge to run without looking back. My husband froze like a rabbit before a hound. I dragged him inside, locked the door, scattered salt across the thresholds and windows. I trusted my protections, but that didn't mean I was stronger than whatever was circling outside. The ancients play by their own rules. My father's words came to mind. That's not how women scream. He said it with a face that suggested he was saving me not from a fox or a cougar, but from something far more frightening. 2 days later, we heard what sounded like a deer screaming in the ravine. My father's eyes darkened. He turned his back to the forest and for the following month kept a shotgun by the door. Now I did the same. We lived like that for half a year. This spirit didn't want peace. It terrorized my husband. Every night he woke up screaming. His mind was slowly breaking. I began to get angry. I brought generous offerings, burnt meat, honey bread, homemade mead. All of it I left beyond the boundary of the protection, but the spirit accepted nothing. By morning, everything was spoiled and rotted. It was a spit in my face. This is my home, and I will not allow someone I love to be tormented. And then it started killing my chickens, and I understood. This is war. I strengthened the protection tenfold, said prayers every night, called upon friendly neighbors for help. I didn't like asking them. There's always a price to pay. But I understood that if I did nothing, this thing would kill us. It wasn't satisfied with our fear. It craved flesh, and chickens no longer satisfied it. For the first time, I saw it after 3 years of living here. It was standing at the edge of my protective circle. It didn't cross the line, but seemed to be testing it. It's hard to describe, but I'll try. Deer are prey. Their eyes are set on the sides of their head to see danger all around. Their legs are built for running. This creature was different in every way. Its eyes were set forward, like a predator's, completely black, not reflecting the beam of the torch. At the shoulder, it was taller than any deer, nearly as tall as the yew under which it stood. Its maw was wrong, a long slit barely concealing sharp teeth. It moved its head like a cat, tilted it sideways like a dog, chattered like a fox. But most frightening of all were the legs, not slender and graceful, but powerful, muscular, a killer's limbs. It pawed the earth with such ferocity that I understood. You don't want to tangle with such strength. The antlers on its head were sharper than nature intended, and the shreds of skin hanging from them were soaked in dried blood. I knew those antlers grew straight from the skull. Then I did something foolish. My husband was sound asleep, exhausted from work and fear. I quietly slipped out the back door and went toward it. It was startled, retreated a few steps, watching my hands, expecting a revolver with silver bullets. But all I had was the pork left over from dinner. I placed the meat on the ground and nudged it with a stick beyond the protection line. The thing watched with interest. For the first time, it lowered its head and began to eat. I took this as a truce. I spoke to it, introduced myself, named my lineage. mention the bones of my ancestors lying in this earth, and ask directly, "What do you want?" Its head jerked, a click sounded, and teeth were bared in a hideous grin. "I want him." Those words stunned me. My husband, a stranger who wouldn't hurt a fly, who observed all the rules. Why? I didn't even try to hide my anger. The voice that answered me didn't come from a throat. It rose up through my spine. The voice of grave earth underfoot. How well do you know the man whose fate you have bound to yours? Do you know much about his past? About the path passed down to him by his ancestors? Are you certain he is a good man? You will find me when you have made your decision, if it isn't too late. It looked at me one last time and dissolved into the shadows of the trees. I thought over its words for several days. I told myself the thing simply wanted to drive me mad, to make me doubt. And if that was the plan, it worked. I could no longer look at my husband the way I used to. I watched his every movement. I saw how he snapped at me over small things. Before, I had blamed that on the stress of the monster. I watched how he drank to forget. I saw the fury with which he chopped wood, as if releasing the beast inside him. I listened to what he muttered in his sleep and understood. He wasn't talking to the spirit. He was talking to someone from his past. I began to think, perhaps this spirit is his reckoning. For a month, I didn't know what to do. I sat at the edge of the protection, waiting for the thing to speak again. But it didn't come. I felt its presence, its gaze in the darkness, but it was silent. My husband became paranoid. I feel his gaze on my back. I see how the knuckles of his fingers widen when he grips the knife at dinner. I see how his jaw tightens when I speak. I'm beginning to think that all this time I've been at war with the wrong enemy, and that the isolation I thought was salvation will become my grave. Last night I destroyed the protection. It was an impulse. My grandmother would have cursed me if she'd seen. Under cover of darkness, I dug up the charmed nails and felt the cold of the forest flood the property. I heard the chattering of a deer with a fox's voice, and went to bed. I don't know how much time I have left until the end of this war. I don't know whose side I'm on anymore. I know only one thing. I grip my amulet more tightly, and I no longer sleep at night. I look into the darkness and whisper to the spirits I call my neighbors.